I, Harvey 30, am 6 months pregnant with my husband's Ethan. 31 baby Ethan, and I have been married for a year and 2 days, and I'm pregnant with our first child. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later. Then I'd wake up at midnight and reheat what Ethan had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one, unless I remind him I've been working overtime and for a few hours on my days off to get as much money as I can before maternity leave, since I don't have a high-paying job, and I'd like to have some extra money for takeaway food for long and tireless days with the baby. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket until we passed out. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out. And because I knew that Ethan was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Ethan seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes when I asked if he was feeling well, but I had to go to work, and so I left without an answer. Once I got home, he wasn't there, but that was normal since he could have been out with friends or at an interview. And so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house. So I checked my phone. Had about 8 missed calls from Ethan and a long text from 40 minutes ago. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our lazy and boring anniversary. Alone, I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called him and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a personal day and spent most of the day waiting for Ethan and planning my big apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a heartfelt, emotionally written card before he went out for an interview. His card told me how much he loves me and how he doesn't want to leave this conversation but needs a few days until we talk to plan out what he wants to say. I've had ages to think about it, and I realize how distant I've been towards Ethan and how I've barely lifted a finger around the house, but I'm still not sure if I am fully to blame here. So, am I the a-hole? Relevant comments, not the a-hole. I'm sorry. What is he, 5 years old? Did he forget how to speak? He clearly forgot how to work and is expecting his pregnant wife to support his lazy butt while he sulks like a toddler. Because he's not getting enough attention? Because you have to work extra hours to keep a roof over your damn head, food on the table, and the damn lights on so you can see him sulking all while you are pregnant? I'm sorry, but that is not a man. That's a child who apparently is still stuck to his own mom's chest and hasn't weaned off yet to know that he's supposed to be the one taking care of you. So let me get this straight. He doesn't work. He refuses to look for a job. He doesn't speak to tell you what he's thinking. Crystal balls have been broken for so long and people don't realize they have to actually talk now. He resents you for not meeting his needs while meeting none of yours. He plays emotional games with your head banging out of the house while you're asleep. Go to play with his friends on your anniversary. Then comes back with a flower and an apology and in the same breath says, "But I don't know if I've forgiven you yet." You know what that is, right? Narcissism. Honey, he is gaslighting you at every single turn. He is gaslighting you and you're letting him stop it. You have 1 baby on the way. You don't need 2. You've raised him long enough. He needs to go back home to his mummy and reattach to her chest if that's what he wants so much. Because clearly he's not been weaned. He wants a mum, not a wife. You're already single, baby. You're raising a full-grown man and supporting a full-grown damn man. If he wants to be a child, fine. Send him on his way. Get yourself to the courthouse file for separation with intent to divorce. He can get himself a job and pay child support. It's time for him to grow up. You don't need 2 babies in the house. You deserve better. Update. 5 days later. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say. Then those days became a week. This part happened 8 days later. I messaged him every day, and he would constantly say that he needed one more day or just another night at his friend's to figure this all out. But on the 13th, I decided to go to the friend's home he was staying at to confront him. So I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from inside. By this point, I'd realized that I should have put more effort into our relationship, but he also should have talked to me about this instead of running away. Ethan's friend came to the door and was confused but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him, and he had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking, and I practically demanded to see Ethan, saying that I wanted to apologize, but also explain how childish he was being by hiding from me. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Ethan wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th Ireland. To say I was absolutely beyond furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in and sat me down to talk. Turns out that Ethan had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Ethan's words. So of course his friend thought that was a lovely idea and helped him to book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Ethan's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. His friend then explained how he'd been confused when I arrived at the door, but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early, due to us arguing. Ethan's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I am just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be completely honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Ethan only responded an hour ago with nothing more than had to figure things out. Sorry. So now I'm home alone again and trying to figure out what I'm going to say when he gets home. Anyway, thanks for reading about how my life is going. Side note, I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think it is since I'm not American, but it still is. So far. Other side note, a question that keep repeating is, where did he get the money from without you noticing? So I'll leave my explanation from the comments here. He has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s, before we met. And a few years ago, we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account. So I'm assuming that he took the money from there, since it wasn't from the joint account. I've had time to think a little. Here's another note. 6 hours later, I knew this post would get attention, but I assumed it would only be a little. I've never used Reddit before, but I've seen it on TikTok a few times. So I thought posts only became popular on there. And maybe this one would get as popular as my Am I the A-hole post. Not very. I was upset when I posted this and didn't think about how I'd handle all of the judgments and conspiracies. Once I'd calmed down, I appreciate the hard truths, empathy, and/or advice given to me, but I am not divorcing him, changing the locks, calling a lawyer, or anything like that. Small update. I've had a longer think. I'm not deciding anything until our talk, but I definitely won't be staying in my home with him after this. I can't trust him not to run away again. I'll talk more about this on my actual update, but I've gained some self-respect and realized he's being in a hole. I talked to my mom, and she's happy for me to move in with her on the 21st, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. So I'm going to post an update just to clear the air when I can. Hopefully the day after Ethan is home, 20th, 21st. And then delete this all a day or two later, or I'll forget to update too. August 21. 6 days later. I ignored my husband so much that he went away without telling me. I want to start this out by saying that a lot of questions have been answered since Ethan came home yesterday evening. The main one being that he did use the second ticket, but for his sister. For the last few days, Ethan's friend has been living with me and helping me through this. One way was that he scheduled a couples and individual counselor for Ethan and I. I have also been calling my mom every day since the 13th, and with the one counseling session, Ethan's friend and my mom all giving me the same advice, I scheduled an early maternity leave with a slight bonus to each paycheck. Because off all my overtime and unpaid help, I officially leave work in 4 days. Back to yesterday, Ethan's friend went to pick Ethan up and sent me photos of who he was with as reassurance that it was his sister Tiff, not her real name. When they arrived, I'd prepared dinner and cleaned the downstairs of our home so that we could have a civilized conversation without hunger or distractions to stop us. Ethan looked extremely tired and he seemed to be on the verge of crying the moment I opened the door to them all. I was incredibly patient for the sole reason of being able to get through this discussion in one piece. And so when Ethan wouldn't speak, I let Tiff explain why she had gone with him. Tiff is a lovely lady who helped me through the few months before my pregnancy. However, Ethan didn't stay in close contact with her, and I lost touch when the work project started. Because of this, she had no clue about anything going on until Ethan called her and said that he had a spare ticket to Ireland. At first, she was reluctant since she knew that I was pregnant, and so she tried to ask why he would leave, and if I was with someone who could care for me. Eventually, Ethan snapped and told her the real reason of why he was going away, and so she joined him to make sure that he knew it was wrong, but also to help him through all the emotions that he was feeling. She was the reason that Ethan came back to me if she hadn't gone with him. Then Ethan admitted that he might have moved to central London or a small village in the countryside to hide from this. It took everything in me not to cry when she admitted that, and I could clearly see the shame on Ethan's face. I'm not going to recite everything, word for word, and so I'll quickly clear up some things. 1. Ethan Diad used the backup savings account, like I thought, to pay for the tickets. The reason that Ethan's friend didn't see who the other ticket was for was because once they had found the tickets, Ethan's friend went to bed. Their tiff was by Ethan's side the entire holiday in Ireland and confirmed without a doubt that this wasn't to find a fling. They spent most of the days in the cheapest hotel room possible in silence before Ethan started talking about everything. 4. When we met and married. Ethan was a loving, hardworking, job-having man whose only dream was to have a wonderful family and then retire to one of those cute stone villages in the south of England. After an hour, Ethan finally spoke up. Tiff and Ethan's friend went into the living room, but I never realized how strange it would feel to be with Ethan again. He confessed that he'd stopped loving me a month into my pregnancy. It wasn't to do with the fact that I was sick all the time, dirty as a mole, or wouldn't stop talking about the baby. He just didn't have a reason. Since he couldn't think of why he stopped loving me, he assumed that the love would come back in no time. That maybe it was some delusion caused by the stress of a baby on the way. Over time, that love didn't come back, and he started feeling incredibly guilty and alone in it all, which is when he got fired from his job. He told me it was because his work performance was belittled by new management, but it was really because he was too trapped in his feelings to think of anything but how much he still didn't love me. Then he never tried to get a job because sitting at home without me, since I had to work more, was much better than sitting at work and possibly getting fired again. He came to love how he had alone time until the moment that he felt alone. That was when he refused to work just so he wouldn't have to see me. He wanted to sit and wait and see how long it would be before I came to him. The trip was to test the waters. It was to see if life would be better without me. He still hasn't decided. In his whole explanation, he kept emphasizing how he didn't love me, and said it like I was a child who needed to hear something 1,000 times just to understand it. He never apologized. In a rough way, I was shocked, distraught. If you have a word to describe that awful emotion, then I felt it. I cried. I shouted, I cried again, and we sat in silence until I could talk. Then I told him how I could never trust him again. How could I possibly trust him not to walk out on me or the baby? How could I trust him to tell me these things or explain his emotions or to see the story from both sides? How could I possibly work myself dry again for an unloving husband? And so I made the decision for him. We would go to couples counseling, not to be a better couple, but just to understand each other and learn to communicate properly while together, and to other people. No matter what, our lives would always involve each other because of the marriage and baby. And so we need to be able to talk. I've moved into my mom's home and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. My mom is helping me to make the spare room into a nursery and is being the most amazing, supportive, incredible mom anybody could be. Tiff and I are going to stay in closer contact, and Ethan's ex-friend said that he can be the appointment driver and is going to be my second emergency contact. As for when I'm in labor, my mom will be with me. and Tiff and Ethan's ex-friend will be waiting to meet the baby and to stop Ethan from even seeing the delivery room. Finally, I made it clear to Ethan that we will separate for now, but will divorce remain separated after the baby is born. I will make sure that he is not mentioned in my emergency contacts. He can't be trusted to show up or even where he says he is. I'm not going to update this anymore since I have things to do and a baby to prepare for. Thank you for sticking around and reading this. I'll respond to whatever comments I see want to. But those are all I'll say after this. Top comments. Somebody said, "Wow, I don't think there was a worse way for Ethan to make any individual choice short of infidelity, gambling, or drugs. Although I wouldn't be surprised if one or more of those factors turns out to be involved later." Another commenter. "Another thought I had, maybe Ethan confuses love with a feeling. Love is an action, a commitment. It is tough and stubborn and continues even when we're not feeling exactly amorous or even friendly with our significant other. Maybe with issues at work, which I'm positive started before he fell out of love, combined with the baby coming, started to overwhelm him, and when he didn't feel the same way, he simply assumed he didn't love her anymore. That said, I think he's simply having a mental emotional breakdown." Original poster replied, "This is a really good point. I think some people think love has to be this overwhelming feeling or desire for someone and panic when it's not there. In reality, those feelings are usually just really strong during the honeymoon phase of a relationship because of intense hormones. This feeling doesn't last forever, and expecting it to stay forever is naive. If you truly love someone, you know you want to be with them, even after that honeymoon phase is over. I think Ethan was unhappy from those other factors in his life and attributed it to his marriage, which was a really dumb thing to do." Somebody said ex-friend. "How did that happen?" Original poster replied, "In short, Ethan lied to his friend, and then the friend learned what Ethan had told me. The friend doesn't want to be Ethan's friend anymore." Someone said, "Holy crap, you essentially set yourself on fire to keep things going." And he wallowed in a toxic pool of selfishness and contempt. It sounds like you'll have great support to move forwards from here. Good on you for setting firm boundaries and forging ahead with plans to care for yourself and your upcoming child. May your ex wind up with a wedgie and a paper cut every day for the rest of his life.